Good day, everybody. I am Sebastian Gaines, and I used to play DragonHeir Silent Gods. So, if you're in the United States, you probably have heard the news. And before I go to that and tell you exactly why this game was doomed to fail from the beginning, there's a couple of things that I want to set up because there is some misinformation going around from screenshots that I've seen on Facebook and Reddit and on their Discord. A lot of it has to do with the fact that back in August of 2020, President Trump signed executive orders that essentially prohibited American businesses from performing deals with two Chinese companies that happened to be Tencent and ByteDance. They respectively ran two social media platforms, WeChat and TikTok, that here in America, they thought, or they thoroughly do believe that the Chinese government is also part with these companies collecting data on United States users. So this is the step that administration at the time took over. Now, in addition to this, you got to also keep in mind that in November of 2023, ByteDance also decided to kind of change their ideology in terms of how they were going to run their business, and they decided to start divesting in mobile gaming. As all of this is going on, now we're progressing to April 2024, and then President Biden signs what we know to be the TikTok ban, unless ByteDance decides to sell TikTok to an American company. And so now ByteDance and Tencent are all tied up in the judicial system here in the United States, trying to appeal these decisions here, and essentially hoping that the First Amendment is able to save them. Now, what happened then is that here you can see that ByteDance then decides to sell division of C4 Games to Tencent. Tencent then also acquire other gaming companies from ByteDance and kind of then put them together into their own little company. But within these companies here, what happened from Nuverse, so as they grab all these teams or this gaming platform, in it, DragonHeir got caught into it. So SGRA is just the studio. They're just the developers. These are the guys that were calling the shots. So then they give it to Tencent. Now, here, more recently now, as we come now to what is July 2024, here is a screenshot of the announcement that they put up on their Discord, essentially saying that DragonHeir Silent Gods was going to stop distributing the game in the United States. It has already been pulled out from the Apple iStore. I saw it on Google Play. But when I clicked on download, it said my device was not compatible. So I think that just means that they actually did pull the game. So, you know, it says here, please note that only service in the United States will be discontinued and services in other regions will remain unaffected and players can continue to enjoy DragonHeir. They even further went on to say that the U.S. service is being terminated under very special circumstances, and that will not affect the services that they have been promised in other playing regions. Because of this statement, people started thinking, oh, is the whole TikTok ban, is this whole debacle going on with Chinese and U.S. and international law that is going on. Those laws in particular that I was highlighting in the TikTok ban do not particularly pertain to gaming. Not yet. Not yet. That could change. But in this regard, I thoroughly believe that the game was already having trouble to begin with when Seasons 2 started for those that started playing during global launch. So if I'm going all the way back, when they launched their beta, and then they started one with Season 1. We kind of got an idea of what would be entailed. They told us that the season would last 3 months, and then a new season would start up, and then we would then get notified of content that was going to come in. And they basically, to content creators, they dropped that 2 days in advance, saying, here's what you can expect. And that's when that whole new damage types came into play. They said, we're going to be playing new bosses, etc., etc., etc. So we went through the grind of season 2, and sure enough, it just ended up being the same thing essentially. There was a D&D collaboration thrown in there, and you had to go and just essentially was just leveling up heroes, running goblin all the time, fighting 6 bosses, collect your legendary. Now let's move out to the end game, and that is just fighting 15 bosses, and you just all you'd have to do is level up any heroes that you were able to summon, if you were lucky enough to get some summons. And what happened after that? Well, season 3 started. In season 3, did it bring any new content? No, not really. So it ended up being the same repetitive crap that the players have been seeing for the last 2 seasons. Granted, some of you may like that, may like just the continuous grind, may like the same play style, the same format of just fighting bosses over and over and over every day and grinding goblin. If that was your thing, then I feel I'm sorry. I sympathize that you're losing the game. But there was no direction, and you could see that. Even the content creators were telling people, if you do not allow players to somehow catch up quickly to the new seasons, if you keep everybody spread out, because that is what was happening. Even though that some of us were in season 2, season 3, there was no way for us to really integrate with any new players, because the new players were just starting in season 1, and they had to go through the grind, and they had to go through the 3-month grind. And then those players were being kept in their own server. They were not allowed to interact with any of the players that had been playing the game for 6 to 9 months, now to a year. That formula in itself, content creator, and especially in that content creator chat, they were consistently being told, the developers have to know that this is not going to last. The game will suffer. Players will bleed out. You're not going to have anything to fill out the servers. Sure enough, they started filling out, they started putting in servers 4, 5 at a time together to start a new season, and it just didn't pan out. And essentially what happened here with what was my former server that started merging with others now is just what were the top accounts of all those servers now just ended up in one, and that's essentially what season 3, 4 it was going to be about. Now, because they couldn't find a solution in terms of integrating the player base together and not sectioning them off together, when they were sold and a company like Trecent grabbed it, and they looked at the idea, they looked at the failed concept that SGRA and Suits and Ties in Nubers could not really alleviate the problems that with a seasonal concept came about, then they just decided maybe the best thing that we can do, given the problems, and use it as a mask, given the problems that we have here in the United States, let's just take the major market out of the picture, pull our game from there, now concentrate on just this little small bit of players, give them a little bit of content if you're going to get any, and then slowly, possibly then wind the game down, close it up, and maybe then restart it over again under a new format. Now, why do I say restart again in a new format instead of just killing it? Because, as another announcement was made, was that they were just going to archive the accounts that started with an IP here in the United States, or that were in this region, this section specifically. They're going to archive them. They're not going to delete them. No, they were going to keep them around. Possibly with the concept that maybe one day they will then notify all these players, hey, you might be able to rescue some of your account or some of your characters by playing the new format of the game. If that ever happens, I'm not going to jump on it. The company has already burned the United States players. Why would you want to deal with them again? And not only that, they have even said, listen, if you purchased anything, you are not getting anything back. The only refunds they're going to give out is if you have any of those magic eggs or any stamina that you got from the passes that you did not use when season 3 ends, or when they shut down the game here in the United States, essentially what it's going to become. So if you don't use those resources, yeah, then you can get a refund for those because you did not use them. But anything else, them knowing this didn't just happen in a blink of an eye. No, this had to stew over, especially after the sale. So they probably sold you banners on Rook. They probably sold you banners on overpowered heroes, heroes that you would be able to make sure that you were able to climb up the leaderboard. And they pretty much robbed you, if that is the case. So if you're in the United States and you just started making purchases, look at your credit cards company's credit card agreement and see what retribution you have. Most likely you have a 90-day window. So if you made any purchase in 90 days, I would just spam it. Call them up saying, listen, here's what happened. Here's a screenshot, Facebook announcement, Discord announcement, Reddit announcement, even in Google Play, there is an announcement. Screenshot that, send that in saying, they completely took the game away. I'm not getting anything out of my money. Can I get anything of it back? Don't let them get away with it. That was a scummy move on their part. I have a feeling that when Trecent got their hands on it, they looked at how everything was formatted. They knew that it wasn't going to work out. They just decided to shut it down here. How best to do that? Start with the United States, because that is one of the biggest markets. You can see that in the trends, aside from Russia. You can see that in the trends that we here in the United States were primarily playing this game, and probably most likely also the large chunk of revenue that they did get from this. But ever since seasons 2 started, I kind of said this coming. If they don't change this, if they don't allow early game players to integrate into and catch up to whatever season there was, this game was going to fail. That is why I left after season 3. And I pretty much just kept an eye on things, especially within the content creator chat, just to see what was happening. And they did not formulate a proper response to trying to incorporate all the new players with the old players. Compound that with the freaking mess that happened when they decided to give like 40 Heliolite dice to new players, and all of those that were season 2 and 3 were just told, you just gotta wait. And eventually they had to cave in and give the same type of resources to those players, but then the damage was done because we knew exactly what they were doing. So it was a failed model. We saw it from the beginning, especially after they said, no, we're going to keep the servers separate. We're going to keep new players separate. Even if you're starting now, you were kept in a separate server and you were not going to catch up. There was no point. There was no point then in looking at this having a bright future, because they were just too stubborn into this seasonal concept, and it just ended up hurting them at the end. Once they changed ownership, this new group, this new what essentially is going to be the ones funding the projects, they said, no, this is not going to work. We're going to shut it down. The United States market ended up being the ones that suffered. So there you have it. We have a failed game. That's part of the gacha gacha modes games. You have to be careful with it, because at times this is what's going to happen, and you're not going to get anything from your money except for possibly a few months of enjoyment. But in the end, that's what happens when we spend on this type of games. If you did spend on this type of games, or you even gave your time to it, you have to know that if things are not being worked out appropriately in the background, things like this are going to happen, and you're going to lose access to the game in this example here. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall very early on. Unfortunately, some of them did not. They keep playing, they kept spending, and now they're going to be left with nothing to show for it. So bummer that this is the decision I decided to go with. It was a game that had a lot of promise during beta, but it's just at the end, it failed. It failed because the development group did not want to change their ideology regarding the seasonal concept. Thank you all very much for tuning in and watching. I am Sebastian Keynes. Please look over on my other channel at Sebastian Keynes if you are interested or looking for another game to possibly replace this one. I wish you the best of luck, and I'll see you all in the next video.